Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Holistic Health Radio. I'm your host, Sarah Liz King. Today on the show, I am joined by the wonderful Millie. Millie is a Carolyn Costin Institute certified eating disorder recovery coach and a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. She battled anorexia for 15 years and very nearly lost her life to the illness. She was given up on by her treatment team and told to consider palliative care options. Her miraculous recovery was a catalyst for her to do a complete career change. She left her hometown of Auckland, New Zealand, and moved to her quote unquote happy place, the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia, where she became determined to use her lived experience to help bring eating disorders out of the shadows and into the light. She dedicates her time to eating disorder advocacy and eating disorder recovery coaching. She helps clients around the world to gain freedom from their eating disorders and reclaim their lives. Millie has her private practice Healed and several years has also worked with the Sunshine Coast-based charity NED, where she was involved in numerous projects, including the establishment of Australia's first residential eating disorders facility, Wanda Narita. A big warm welcome to the show, Millie. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you today.
It is such a pleasure, and we share so much in common for our passion to help others in their recovery journeys, which we are going to talk a little bit more about today and learn about your story in particular. But before we do that, I always like asking my guests a few fun get to know you questions. The
Okay.
first of which is, don't worry, what is your coffee order? And if you're not a coffee order, just what you order when you go to your cafe.
I don't drink coffee, and I hate to think how my energy levels. I'm already bouncing off the walls without coffee. So, goodness knows what I'd be like if I did drink coffee. I love herbal tea, and my favorite at the moment is rhubarb and strawberry. So, that's in the morning. In the evening, I love spiced apple and chamomile.
Oof, that one sounds so yummy. Um, and what are you grateful for today?
I am very, very grateful to live by the ocean. This morning, when I was wandering along the beach, the rolling waves, the warmth of the sunshine, the smell of the sea air, that is what I am so incredibly grateful for today and every day.
I think we are so blessed, both of us living by the beach, because it is just so grounding and
Yeah.
so relaxing to wake up and have that view and serenity every single day. I just think to myself, it's such a slice of paradise.
There's something so grounding and centering about it. And I also think just the vastness of the ocean reminds you to just keep things in perspective.
So true. It reminds you that we're just these tiny little beings amongst this huge planet Earth. My next question is a bit of an interesting one, which is, what is the best gift that you've ever bought for someone else or received yourself?
That is such a fabulous question. I have never been asked it in my entire life. So, the best gift that I have ever received or that I have given someone else. So, I think for me, one of the best gifts that I ever received was some beautiful, I'm actually looking at them right now, and that's the first thing that came to mind. For my 30th birthday, my parents got me these beautiful, that's from a local photographer, two beautiful black and white prints of just absolute ferocious rolling surf, to carry on the ocean analogy. And they're beautifully framed in black and white. And I look at them every day, and there's just something about bringing the ocean into the home that I just adore. And I know that I will have them forever. In terms of a gift for a friend, The one that I'm thinking of most recently, because I'm sure there have been many over the years, is a girlfriend of mine recently had a new baby, and she had a beautiful book that she wanted to fill with all the memories and milestones. And she had mentioned in passing that she would like to do a Polaroid photo form. And so I managed to get her a Polaroid camera that she could do that on and fill the book. So I like to give practical gifts that I know that someone's going to use and that they really, really want.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that resurgence of what is old is new again. So,
Yes.
people buying disposable cameras to bring to the party and have those in the moment photos that we don't get to see until they're printed out, or the Polaroid cameras. I think it's so nice to have moments where, we don't take like 1,000 photos, but we're very, I guess, specific in how we capture the moment and just how it turns out. So it sounds like such a beautiful gift. And yeah, being able to see those beautiful rolling waves is always that good reminder when you can't stare straight out at the ocean. Um, the next one, these questions take turns in all different directions, but what can we always find in your fridge?
What can we always find in my fridge? Marmalade. I love French marmalade. So this beautiful French brand of marmalade that I just adore. And there's always marmalade in the fridge and multiple jars of marmalade in the pantry in case I should run out of the marmalade.
And I'm assuming this goes on like beautifully buttered toast.
Sourdough, anything. Marmalade,
Yeah.
yep. Marmalade can go on top of rice pudding. Marmalade can be spread across chicken or fish. There's a nice glaze. There are so many things that people don't know that you can actually do with marmalade.
So if Millie ever gives up her day job, she's becoming a marmalade ambassador.
Clearly.
Yeah. And what are your daily non-negotiables that make you feel your absolute best?
Starting the day by the ocean, whether it's rain, hail, or shine. I just absolutely love it. Even if it means I have to drive there and sit in the car and watch the wave from the car because it's so rainy. There's something about doing that that's very centering and very grounding. I also, for me, making sure that I nourish myself with beautiful food that I love, and just am really in tune with my body. And also, I really, really love my afternoon naps. Now, I can't say that that's strictly a non-negotiable because sometimes I can't schedule them in because life is life. But if in my dream world I could make sure that I had an afternoon nap every single day, then I think I would be at the height of contentment.
I mean, never say never. Your wildest dreams can come true.
Absolutely.
Now, you have a very interesting story that I would love for our listeners to get a little bit more insight into. So, I kind of wanted to start your story by asking you, not necessarily just in general about your eating disorder recovery journey, but when you were little, do you remember what your relationship with, food and exercise in your body was like? And at any stage, do you remember a very remarkable point where things started to shift for you, maybe in a way that felt more towards that development of an eating disorder or even disordered eating?
Yes. So I was incredibly lucky to have a very idyllic childhood where any thoughts around food or my body my body was just my body. It allowed me to run and to play and to climb trees and to go on flying foxes and to sail. I sailed when I was younger, and so we were constantly on the boat, and so I could go wakeboarding and do all these things. So it was really about what my body allowed me to do, and how to live my life. And I never really had a concept of it looking a certain way or being concerned about that. Similarly with food, I was very lucky. My mum's a chef, and we have also, family from Italy, and so we're very Mediterranean influenced world of food that was present in my family, which meant, a real love of food and of beautiful food of all varieties. And so I never really, again, had a concept of there being restrictions or anything like that. And I think the first moment that I remember, and I don't know whether this contributed to my eating disorder or whether it was the first moment that I started to feel the concept of body image and about trying to fit in. I was very excited. It was Mufti Day. It was year 6, so the last year of primary school in New Zealand, and Glassons had these cool new board shorts, and they were short board shorts, and I wore them and I was very excited. And I was sitting down having our morning tea, our lunchbox was on our lap, and the girl next to me turned to me and said, girls with legs like yours shouldn't wear shorts like those. And I didn't really know what to make of it. It stuck with me to this day. And I don't remember ever taking any steps or really taking it any further than it sticking in my mind. And I don't really remember any other points in time until when I started at a private all-girls school in year 7. So, beginning of intermediate, and I just felt a little bit inadequate. Like all these other girls seemed to be thinner and prettier and somehow better than me. Well, that's what my brain told me. And, for me, I also began a friendship with a girl who at the time I didn't realize was very manipulative. And she was blonde, blue-eyed ballerina with a very different body shape to me. And she really did make me feel inadequate and would do things like we would go shopping at the mall and then she'd ask me to try on her jeans, and they would fit me, but they would fit me very differently to how they fitted her. And so I started to develop this concept of just not being quite right. And maybe I could be more popular or prettier or better if I lost a little bit of weight for summer. And that's how it started. I said to Mum, I think I might want to lose a little bit of weight for summer. I think I'm going to eat healthier. And then the scene was set.
And, when you kind of said those words to your parents, to your mum in particular, what was her reaction?
She didn't think anything of it. She thought, well, that's okay, darling. We can definitely, make some healthier choices if that's what you'd like to do. I don't remember her exact words, but it probably have something to that effect. And I'd also said that I might like to do some more exercise activity. I really did no intentional exercise. And so, she said, well, that's good. We can go for some walks. Or she thought it was a healthy thing to do. And that it was great that I wanted to take some ownership over my health. Little did we know, genes load the gun, environment pulls the trigger, and I already had the genetics, all the personality characteristics, type A, OCD, high achiever, all the things. And then once I walked into school, it was, this, as I said before, the scene was set, and I really didn't have a chance at not developing my eating disorder.
Yeah. And I think that's so important to note that, so many people just make an assumption that eating disorders are these things that develop out of quote unquote vanity, and it's such a myth that they do. They are a combination of so many factors, and a lot of them are related to genetics and our environment and predispositions of our personality, and the list goes on and on and on. And I know so many people blame themselves for the circumstances that they find themselves in when they do develop an eating disorder, and think that, it's all their fault. And if they'd done something differently, then maybe they wouldn't have ended up in this situation. And to anyone out there who feels that way, I just want you to know that that's never the case. Nobody chooses to have an eating disorder or any other mental health condition. Nevertheless, it is a very difficult situation to find yourself in. And so when, you started to make those healthier choices, when did you know in your heart of hearts that something wasn't right? Or was it very difficult for you to see? And was it someone else in your life that pointed out that maybe things were going a step too far?
I didn't see it at all. I did not see it at all. Did not think that there was a problem at all. It was actually a dear friend who was a year ahead of me at school. We used to catch the bus home, and we were in our winter uniforms, so full on, tunics, kivvies, blazers, all the things. And she happened to catch sight of my wrists on the bus, and that was enough for her to say to my mum when we got off the bus, "I think there's something wrong with Millie." And that was when mum kind of clicked that, okay, maybe there is, I don't really remember a lot about that time, to be honest. I know I was taken out of school, and I had a whole year off school, and we did FBT and that, but I don't really remember exactly the trajectory of that.
Yeah. And do you feel like that was because your brain kind of was at a stage where it was malnourished or it was protecting you, so it kind of just, shut out those thoughts of that time?
Yeah, I think so. I think also, for me, it's a long time ago now. I'm
Yeah.
36, and so it was when I was 12. And so, I have very vivid memories from that time, but exactly how the trajectory from mum realizing that there was a problem to, I have vivid memories of traumatic experiences with awful psychologists and, like specific ones, but I don't remember exactly how it then played out. I just remember not being at school for about a year, being put back into school in year 9, and the weight having been the focus the entire time, I still had all the thoughts. So for me, it was like going back into school, and I had to pretend that I was okay because everyone was like, "Yay, Millie's great again." And I still had all the raging thoughts in my head. And so for me, it was like, wow, okay, I've got to put on this game face here, threw myself into academia and
Yeah.
pretended to be living when really I was just existing. And I certainly wasn't living life as a normal teenager in any way, shape, or form.
And that's really a strong differentiator between, I guess, what people see and where you're actually at. You can be at a stage of being, more physically renourished, but that doesn't ameliorate all of the fact that this can sit in your mind for such a long time. And we will get into that kind of neural rewiring and talk about that a little bit more, but that is such a big component of the recovery process. And obviously, your recovery process and everyone's recovery process is so unique. Can you tell us a little bit about what was most helpful in you regaining your life and reaching full recovery? And also, how you kind of navigated through moments where you might have felt a bit hopeless about it all.
I think for me, what helped me the most was I had an amazing therapist at the end when I was literally, my body was shutting down. And she approached things in a very different way, a very different manner to how any other therapist had. She specialized in neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, and hypnotherapy. And one of the foundational things that she said to me that really created a really fundamental change within my soul was, you don't have an eating disorder. An eating disorder is something that you do. It's a behavior that's become a habit, and habits can be changed if you really want to. And at first, because I was so unwell and so malnourished and my brain was just beside itself, I didn't really. And in fact, I actually looked at my mum, who was in the room at the time, and thought, you have found a really Fruit Loop therapist here, because I'm practically dying of anorexia, and it's been 15 years and she's telling me I don't have an eating disorder. I remember later on after the session thinking to myself, she's right. And so in that moment, I was given agency. I was choosing to do, even though it didn't feel like a choice, I was choosing to do some behaviors that were getting me down that track, that were keeping me stuck. And I could choose to either keep channeling my determination, perfectionism, all of those things into really nailing this eating disorder, or I could channel them into nailing recovery. And as we know, it's not as simple as suddenly being like, yay, let's go, let's run off into the sunset. It was some of the most traumatic, torturous time of my life doing that. But it was also the thing that absolutely turned my life around. So for me, just that simple fact on its own, knowing that this was something that if I chose to change it, I could, rather than what I had been told in the past, you'll just have to learn how to manage your thoughts. This is something that you've got, you'll never really properly get rid of it. And I guess for me, when I'd been told that over the years, there was probably a part of me that had then gone, well, what the heck is the point in putting myself through this torture then if I'm never going to be free from the thoughts? And knowing that I could do that if I really tried hard was incredibly empowering. And that day was the day where things really started to change, and I really started to leap right into recovery.
Yeah. And obviously, having those moments, making those decisions, but knowing that it is, a repeated daily choice, a repeated hourly choice until those new habits that really are value aligned, are, sustainable for your well-being, until they become your new automatic and your new normal. It is this like conscious decision to keep doing it, which I think, nobody's going to uh, sugarcoat it. It is tiring, but it does get you that freedom. How has your own personal lived experience kind of informed your work as an eating disorder recovery coach?
In so many ways, in every way. I think for me, when I did turn my life around, and I do still think that it's an incredibly miraculous thing that happened, and I came so close to not being here. And so when I did survive, it was like, okay, there's got to be a reason. There has got to be a reason that I struggled so long and so hard. And I had this pivotal moment when I was in LA, a couple of months after being fully weight restored and feeling like life was incredible. And I heard a woman who was pushing a little girl on a swing, and she said to her, "You're getting too fat. I won't be able to swing you anymore soon." And I had this visceral reaction in the pit of my stomach. And people had been saying to me, "You should write about your story." And I sort of thought, there's so many anorexia stories out there. I'm not going to write about it unless I have something unique to offer. But that day, I couldn't turn my head and not. So I went home and I wrote about it back in 2016, where you blurted out things on your Facebook wall. And I wrote in a very raw manner about it all. And then I went to bed. And I woke up and hundreds of people had liked it, and Huffington Post wanted to publish it, and there was this media around it. And I knew then this was the reason, and that my story could help others. And I can't explain it. It was just like this uprising within me of, okay, this is what I've got to do. And at the same time, it was like, you know what, you have survived against all the odds. And so every day is a gift. So you want to be living exactly where you want to live. Sunshine Coast had always been my happy place. And that's when I moved here. And for me, I practice in the way with my clients that I would have wanted to be supported. I would have loved to have been able to have a coach. My mum was incredible, and she, really did embody a coach role, but it's hard because she was also trying to be a mum as well. And so it would have been amazing if I could have had a coach there, so that I could have preserved that mother-daughter relationship to be just that, and have the coach step in and do the eating disorder side of things. And so I'm constantly putting myself in my clients' shoes. Right here in this moment, if I was in their situation, what would be the words I needed to hear? What do I need to instill in them in this moment in order to help them move forward? And so I think for me, it's this, I know how hard it is, but I also know that they've got the power within them to do it. And so when they're doubting themselves, I can wholeheartedly promise them that they've got everything in there inside of themselves to do it. It's just a matter of like accessing it and actually committing to it. And I also think there's a real implicit sense of trust, right? I've been there. I get it. I know. I'm not just saying to you, I know how you feel. I genuinely, truly do know what it's like to have an insidious beast of an illness in your head 24/7, trying to control and ruin your life. So for me, that's, really, really important. And I think I always say that I come at it with, I'm firm, and I will absolutely challenge the heck out of the eating disorder. But I also come at it with a lot of love and a lot of compassion, because we need that when we're restoring our souls. We need to be taught how to speak kindly to ourselves again. And then I think also lived experience definitely did have a big part to play in why I also combined the recovery coaching and the NLP, because for me, that was an absolute game changer. NLP really changed how I approached recovery, looked at life, and it enabled me to really take that final leap of faith and get my life back.
Yeah, amazing. And I don't think we've had in the history of this podcast anyone talk specifically about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Can you elaborate on what NLP is, and also how it specifically can assist individuals on their recovery journeys?
Sure. So NLP, I try and talk about it really in a non-clinical way so that people can really understand, because I think if we talk about it clinically, it can feel very sort of highbrow and people don't understand. And I don't want that to be the case, because then it almost, I feel, turns people off giving it a go. And so I'm going to define NLP and then talk about some of the key sort of things that I use in my work. So we think about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So there is a connection between the neurological processes, so the neuro, language, linguistic, and behavioral patterns learned through experience, which is programming. And these can be changed to achieve specific goals in our life, i.e. recovering from an eating disorder. And so if we go back to what I was saying before, it's about the fact that this is not something that you have, it's something that you do, a behavior that's become a habit, and habits can be changed. So this is where I came up with my concept of Millie's 3Cs, the conscious, consistent commitment. Because if we think about your eating disorder, it's consciously, consistently committed to ruining your life every moment of every day. So you've got to come at it just as hard with a conscious, consistent commitment with recovery. It's no use one day of the week doing it, or every second day giving it a good challenge. If you really want to get it out of your life, you have to come at it with equal force and that consistency. And what we know is neural pathways can absolutely be changed, but it's through repetition that they get changed. And so that is why it's so important to keep up that consistency with whatever habit it might be that you're trying to change. And I think what's really important to remember when we look at eating disorders is that it's like you've got an eating disorder superhighway in your brain. You wake up, it's much easier to get on the freeway than it is to take a random back road somewhere, right? And so you get on that eating disorder superhighway because it's like almost like an autopilot in your mind at this point, and it just seems easier. All right. It's a path of least resistance. And as humans, we take that. But I want you to visualize the fact that there is a path on the side of the highway. It's kind of almost like overgrown a little bit, and someone's only been down there a couple of times. That's your healthy self pathway. If we're talking about it in terms of an eating disorder self and a healthy self, that's your healthy self right there. And man, you need to keep taking that path a few more times until it gets some gravel on it, until it gets tar sealed, until it becomes a highway. And then it'll be just as easy to hop on there as it is to hop on the eating disorder superhighway. And I like to bring it back to that analogy often with clients, because it can seem like, well, it's just impossible. But it's like, no, it's not. You can absolutely create another pathway for yourself. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes commitment, but it's absolutely possible. And it's almost like, if we think about it, it's like your eating disorder has brainwashed you. So we need to brainwash you out of your eating disorder, and you absolutely can do that. And there are a couple of things that I use along the way with clients that really help to bring them back to, okay, we need to be creating those healthy self pathways and going down the eating disorder. So we know that there are so many decisions and choices across a day when it comes to an eating disorder. And so it's really important that every time those choices come up, you are actually taking the healthy self choice rather than the eating disorder self. And an analogy I use for that all the time is, Are you throwing logs on the bonfire of your eating disorder, or are you throwing logs on the bonfire of your healthy self? We want to be igniting that healthy self and absolutely exterminating that eating disorder. And so some clients say to me, but I don't know, I don't know whether it's my healthy self or it's my eating disorder self. So 2 exercises that I would highly recommend anyone still on the throes of their eating disorder to do if they haven't already. Write a what am I fighting for list. So a list of all the things that you want in your life, the big things, the little things. Write them down and get really, really clear on them. The things that you know, if you're really honest with yourself, that you won't be able to truly do in full capacity if you hold on to your eating disorder. And also, split a piece of paper in half. On one side, put eating disorder self, the other side, your healthy self. What does your eating disorder self value? What do you value? And use those values in those moments where you are trying to decide what to do. Is this in line with my values, or is this in line with my eating disorder's values? And one more that I want to mention, because I think it's really, really powerful. And this is particularly good for people who aren't great with doing things, words, and feel really, really mixed up on a page, especially when your kid's really loud, is a visualization. So pick one of those things off your what am I fighting for list. One thing that resonates with you more than anything else. Okay. And do a visualization around it. So it's really important the visualization is super detailed so that you can elicit it. Say, for example, you're in an Italian restaurant, you're really worried about having pasta around everybody, and you just need to ground yourself. You don't have your what am I fighting for list there. You can't even think what your values are at this point in time. And you can just go into the bathroom, elicit this visualization, remind yourself of what matters, and go out there and eat pasta. So, for example, I'll give you an actual example. I had a client, her sister had said to her, I really want our children to be able to grow up together. And at that point, my client couldn't have children because of where she was at in her recovery. And so she visualized being at her sister's place in the late afternoon sun on a summer's day. There was Jack Johnson playing on the radio, a hedge of blue hydrangeas, a tartan picnic blanket, wine and cheese. She was wearing her favorite summer dress. The kids were playing under the sprinkler in front of them. So that's what I mean by being really, really detailed. And that was the visualization that kept getting her through when she needed to make those really, really hard decisions. And so there are so many things that we can do to encourage that cognitive change. One more thing, because I'm super passionate about this, and then I promise you I'll stop. But it's changing your environment. So if you when I recovered here on the Sunshine Coast, and I had to go back to Auckland, New Zealand, where my eating disorder had manifested. I had to go back to the family home. And what was really great when we got back, I changed my whole room around, everywhere my bed was, all of these things. Changing your environment helps you to continue with that cognitive change and really instill new habits and behaviors. So it might be that you start having your breakfast cereal in a different bowl. It might be that you sit in a different chair on the dining table. As humans, we go into autopilot and we have these little rituals and routines. So try and change things in your environment to keep your brain guessing and keep yourself growing rather than going back to the status quo.
I think you gave our audience some incredibly helpful, tangible, practical things that they can put into play for their recovery. And I love that you touched on the fact that it can be so challenging to identify what your healthy self sounds like, mostly because I think your eating disorder self can throw a lot of mistrust into the mix, and it can make you question everything. And so when you have moments where you can sit down and give yourself clarity and create some distance from, your eating disorder voice, and really, visualize and encapsulate what you're fighting for and what your healthy self wants for you and what its values are, it does make those really challenging moments a little bit easier to navigate. And obviously having someone like yourself there to kind of go, okay, I've got you in those really difficult moments when, you still are a little bit unsure, or maybe your eating disorder voice is still really loud. I think that's one of the powers of having a recovery coach. is those in between moments. And that's what I'm often saying to clients. You know, you can see a dietitian and a psychologist, and all of those people can give you like amazing direction and helpful changes to make. And you leave and you're super motivated and you're like, yes, I'm going to go do the things. But it's those in between moments where sometimes, you know, things go astray. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into, you know, as a coach, what are you doing in those in between moments where you're not seeing clients to make sure that they feel supported? Because that's something I'm incredibly passionate about, and I know you would be too.
Absolutely. So my clients have access to me whenever they need to. So I send a lot of voice messages because I think it's really calming to hear someone's voice. And a lot of clients tell me that being able to play them back is really, really helpful. So clients are able to voice message me or text me depending on what they would like to do. And so in that moment, I'm always encouraging people to reach out, tell me what's going on so that I can be that voice of reason. I can bring you back to your, what am I fighting for, or your values, or what truly matters, or what was discussed in the session this week with your dietitian and what we're aiming for, remind you of your goals, those sorts of things. And also being there, being that sort of loving, compassionate space. Almost like, you know, a client said to me the other day, she's like, you're like my little safety net, and I can just know that I can crumble to fall into pieces with you, and you're just going to pick me back up again and put me back together, and we'll keep going. And it's that ability to know that you don't have to, and I'm always saying to clients, don't think, if you think about messaging me, just message me straight away. Don't try and script it. Don't try and make it make sense. Just blurt it out. Even if you're bawling your eyes out, just try and get the words out so that I know where you're at. I know how heightened the emotions are, and I can help step you through it. I think that is the beauty of coaching, is knowing that the person that you're reaching out to isn't going to say something that's triggering or invalidating or disempowering. They are going to absolutely hold space for you. Know that in this moment, this thing that most other human beings find really easy to do is excruciatingly difficult. And I get that. I hear you, I see you, and I will hold space for you, and we will get out the other side together.
Yeah. And, you know, as you were speaking, I just know that, you know, everyone that works with you would probably see you as what my clients sometimes call me, their fairy recovery godmother. That person that's there to wave a metaphorical magic wand that not necessarily takes the pain away, but shares the load of a situation so that it doesn't feel so heavy or that they have to carry it by themselves. And I think being allowed to do that on a regular basis brings back a little bit of that lightness that makes taking the next steps so much easier. Because I just know from my own personal experience how heavy it was to carry the load myself and not really have anyone that fully understood what I was going through. I had an incredible support system in my family, and you know, not many of my close friends really knew it was happening for me, but you know, I had incredible support. But even still, there were moments of just complete knowing that nobody really could get it the way that someone else who had been through that experience could get it. And to all of our listeners, many who are kind of potentially navigating a journey, working on their relationship with food and exercise and their body image, what kind of advice would you offer someone who might be, I guess, struggling or maybe feeling like they've just, you know, gone through this process of recovery for so many years and they don't feel like they're getting there and they're, you know, a little bit hopeless about it all?
That I totally understand that feeling. I get it. It's long and it's hard, but the battle is worth it. I think the most important thing is remembering that you hold the key to your own recovery. Don't sit there waiting for someone else to come in and fix this for you, because I did, and it got me absolutely nowhere. This is about you. You hold the power inside yourself to do this. You have the key to your own recovery. And there might be people listening going, well, hell, that makes me feel even worse because I don't even know what to do with that. I want you to be empowered by that fact, that it's not reliant on anyone else. It's not reliant. You can have the best team in the world, best coach, best psychologist, psychiatrist, GP, everything, all the things, dietitian, whatever. But unless you use what you have inside of yourself to get yourself out, people can only help you to a certain point. And I think you have to make a conscious choice that you are going to do it. It comes back to that conscious, consistent commitment. Now, I know I have clients in their moments when they're absolutely really angry at me and feeling really frustrated and their eating disorders in the driver's seat. I'm like, I don't have a choice. Don't tell me I have a choice. And I understand that frustration too. And I understand that it can feel like that you don't have a choice, but you do. You always have a choice. The eating disorder is not tying you down, making you do anything. You physically can make the choice to do the thing that's in line with your values, that's getting you closer to freedom, that's getting you closer to what you're fighting for. Recovery is always possible. So don't, if you're sitting there and you're feeling hopeless, know that it doesn't matter how long or how hard you have struggled. It can be years and years. I've worked with people who've struggled for 40 years and they've still got out of their eating disorder. So you can 100% get out. Don't let anyone or anything tell you otherwise. There is absolutely always hope. And I always like to remember this. I don't know whether it was words that I came up with when I took a photograph when I was in America recently, and it was this light coming through this cloud. And I wrote these words, and they came from my heart. So if they're somewhere else on the internet, I'm sorry. I'm not meaning to plagiarize in any way. But the words that came to my mind were, where there is light, there is life. And where there is life, there is hope. So always look for the light. There's light everywhere, whether it's light on a Christmas tree, whether it's, a little bit of light amongst murky clouds after a storm, there is always light. So look for that light. It might be a little candle that you've got burning in the corner. Look for that light and use it as a reminder that there is life, there is hope, there is so much waiting for you on the other side of this. And you're no different to any other people that have recovered. I used to think, look at these people who are recovered. I remember this girl telling me when I was in the depths of my eating disorder, she was like, what you really should be having is some crumpets with peanut butter and banana. And I just remember looking at her and thinking like, hell, I haven't even touched a banana. I don't even whoa, I don't think I'll ever be able. And I remember when I was biting into a crumpet with peanut butter and banana, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I made it. I'm here. How did this happen? And so even if when, you might be listening to this today thinking, but that'll never happen for me. I felt that way too. I looked at these people who could eat in such a carefree manner, and they were just able to hold conversations, and they really didn't care, and they were just picking things off multiple plates, and they had no idea how much they were eating or what was going on. And I thought, I'm never going to be able to do this. This is just impossible. But you can, and you will. And so don't think that we're some unicorns that have recovered and that it's not possible for you, because it is. And another thing that I would say is, because I know eating disorder can make you doubt, is this battle, this really excruciating daily battle of recovery, going to be worth it? Well, let me tell you, I have never met anyone who has recovered from an eating disorder that has said to me that it wasn't worth it. No, it wasn't really that worth it. I mean, life's not really that great. I still cannot accurately articulate how amazing this wild and wonderful life of freedom that I now have is. And I don't know whether I'll ever be able to find words, because I almost feel like it's this indescribable feeling of joy that you have waking up each day knowing, for me, I feel like it's a gift, because I know that I could have so easily not been here.
Yeah. And I think, your answer alone will just keep people inspired, because I too have never met a person who's regretted their recovery. And I think some of those situations where you're helping people who have had an eating disorder for decades of their life, 20, 30, 40 years, who are fatigued by the process, and then seeing their life unfold, how it reinvigorates that spark within them, shows you how much an eating disorder just muffles your existence. It makes you live life in that gray zone. I always say that recovery was what gave me color back in my life and made everything that was mundane miraculous again. And I think that is the power of having experienced that really dark and quite painful time in your life of having to kind of go through an eating disorder and then recover from it, and to come out the other side, it does make you grateful for the little things and for how wonderful life can be. And I mean, that doesn't mean that you won't have challenges. Of course, life is full of challenges, but the way that you'll navigate them is just so different from, the life that, or what you would have done when you had an eating disorder. So
I couldn't agree more. I honestly couldn't agree more. And I love what you just said about the mundane things and the miraculous. I actually had to write a piece for a book, and that was one of the things I said. It was just like all these little things were happening around me in the world. And not only was I free to witness them, but I was like absolutely marvel at them. Like, oh my goodness, look at this, beautiful flower. Look at the individual petals. These things that for so long I'd had my anorexia blinkers on, and I had not seen the beauty of these things, probably hadn't even seen them at all. And all of a sudden it was like there's this world of technicolor all around me, and I'm here to be a part of it. And isn't that the most wonderful, wonderful thing?
yeah, incredible. And to wrap up this conversation, for anyone that would like to connect with you, where can we find out more about you or follow you online?
I would love to hear from any of you today. So please don't hesitate in reaching out. I love to hear from each and every one of you. So my Instagrams are at Millie T NZ and at Healed Recovery Coach, which I'm sure Sarah will do in the show notes. And then my website is www.healed.net.au. My email is millie@healed.net.au. And I've also recently launched a new podcast called Renourished with the amazing eating disorder recovery coach Olivia Soha, and so that is up there too. The links to that you can find directly on my Instagram.
Amazing. And I will be sure to pop all of those links in the show notes for our listeners. For anyone out there who really enjoyed today's episode, feel free to take a screenshot of wherever you're listening. You can tag myself or Millie. We'll be sure to reshare those on our stories. And of course, to support the show, if you have a moment to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, would absolutely love that. It helps other people out there who might be navigating this experience find the podcast, which is an amazing, helpful resource. But until next time, keep looking after yourselves, and I will be back next week with a fresh new episode you can wrap your ears around.